welcome to the very first Tip in the Scales podcast. I'm Isaiah Scales, and with me is Flotus, Jessica Scales.
Yo, what's up?
How you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good. Midway through the week, ready to get back out there to Barney's Beanery this weekend. Got the special menu with the 40% off. That includes alcoholic beverages and the rest of the menu off 25% off. So it's a great deal. It's a great time. Come and cheer on the Hawks.
Like that you have mentioned Barney's Beanery. Hey, if you're in the Los Angeles area, make sure you get yourself out to Barney's Beanery. We are in Santa Monica, Redondo Beach. Such a great environment to just be out here. Had a great crowd out with us this past weekend for the Penn State game. Anytime you are in Los Angeles, make sure you come to Barney's Beanery. That's for sure. 40% off. You're not going to find that nowhere else in Los Angeles. I can tell you that right now. All your drinks too. We're talking Iowa Hawkeye football, as they look to rebound after some painful back-to-back losses with Michigan and last week with Penn State.
I had the pleasure of being at both of those games.
So you kind of have a lot to fault in this. I mean, we kind of know that you show up these games don't really work out well. So I don't know why you keep doing this. Why do you keep putting this on Iowa and jinxing this?
Well, I'd like to point out that I was at the Iowa-Ohio State game, so that worked out pretty well for us. My track record hasn't been great with you there either. I choose high-quality games to go to, and with high-quality games, you have a higher chance of losing, I guess. But
anomalies, I'm telling you, stay at Barney's. That's what you need to do. Keep yourself right here in LA. Let's talk about this game. How would you describe Hawk Nation's emotions after suffering these losses? With Michigan and Penn State. How do you feel like the fans and are feeling about this right now?
What we saw was the same thing. I think they played a little bit better against Penn State. They played better with the offensive line on the outside, but interior was still not where it needs to be. The defense was outstanding yet again. And the offense has got to figure out a way to score some points. And I get that these are high-quality opponents. And anytime you play the so-called, blue bloods, top names, in the country, you think a little bit of extra gets put in those games. But, the Hawks have beat these blue bloods in the past. And I think we put a team out there that's good enough to beat anybody on any given day. So there's definitely a lot of things to clean up. And I think you don't want to see the same thing going into this third straight week here.
Where do you think things went wrong as far as just where the offense was at? What do you think was wrong in just getting themselves out of the hole that they found themselves slipping in?
I mean, look, again, the offensive line wasn't where I think it's not up to the standards that even us as the fans expect. We go into every season and I don't even think we bat an eye and think that the offensive line couldn't be good, because most years it's not an area of concern for us. So it's a little bit different for us to have to look and say, wow, there are some issues there. I mean, the middle of the line is very young, and so there's growing pains with that. I thought Alaric Jackson and Tristan Wirfs were a lot better last week than they were against Michigan. And so, but you still got to clean up that interior. I also think the play calling was extremely inconsistent. We've got a great group of wide receivers, probably the best group we've had. I mean, going back to the DJK Marvin McNutt years where we had two consistent wide receivers. So I think get them more involved. And I love Tyler Goodson. I love him. I think we've got a great group of backs. We got to figure out how to run the ball, though. We got to figure it out.
You bring up a really good point, though. It's tough to take a loss, and that's where we kind of focus, where everything that went wrong when you lose. But a lot of good things that you still are seeing from this team. You talk about Tyler Goodson. I talk about this wide receiver group. I think this is one of the wide receiver groups that really have stepped up from where we were just even a few years ago. The level of play is just really tightened up there. And that's why I feel like, hey, it's about time, but maybe take a little bit more chance, because we got the skill players that can make those kind of catches. So you saw it when we got, down to that 2.5 minutes left in the game and we scored that touchdown.
Brandon Smith made a great catch.
It was a great catch. And you have to start thinking, you know what, it's time to start pressing a little bit offensively and let these guys and your playmakers go out and make the plays that they can make.
I'd like to see them, do some more quick passes with Stanley. I think especially since you are having some issues with your offensive line, why not get the ball out quicker? I mean, you saw how successful a player like Brock Purdy was against the Iowa defense. He got the ball out so quickly against us, and that's what led to some of their success. I would like to see Iowa do that. I mean, get the tight ends and the running backs involved in the blocking up front to buy him a little bit more time so that he's not having to throw the ball away. He's not taking the sack. He's not holding the ball too long. He's, getting rid of it. I'd like to see some more quick passes, especially since you got the talent for it.
I think that's one of the things that as a program we have to look at a little bit differently, because Iowa tends to be the type of team that says we're Iowa, we're going to run, and you know what we're about, we're going to run, and that's what we're going to do. What I would say, the coaches are going to definitely have to take a look at is their in-game adjustments. That is something that I think is a fair critique here, that most fans are going to say, yes, it appears that by the time we get into the second quarters, into halftime, third quarters, that's where most teams are now looking back and saying, okay, here's what's working, here's what's not working. But I would say we don't look like we are taking that time to really evaluate what comes next for us. And we obviously saw in the last two games, the run wasn't there. The passes weren't there either. We're finding ourselves even second and short, ending up in third and long due to the sacks. And like you talked about, it just wasn't there as far as being able to get the offensive linemen, to give Stanley more time back there. That's where you got to start taking advantage and realize most of your shots are going to have to be quick passes. You're going to have to exploit a little bit there, taking some more slants and more short routes on there when Stanley doesn't have the time back there in the pocket. So that's one thing I want to see going forward from Brian Ferentz and company, is basically just taking on the idea that, hey, if it's not working, we're not going to just continue to pound and pound and pound until we think it magically will work. Let's try to get out of our comfort zone and do, whatever the defense is giving us a little bit more. Obviously, their pressuring was coming hard. So if you think about it, you just have to get yourself into the secondary, because if you get yourself to the secondary, you're more than likely going to have some room with all the blitz that's happening up front on the quarterback. So, sneaking a little bit more play action and obviously like screens, I think are going to be more beneficial. And I think for a lot of fans, they also felt that maybe we gave up a little bit too fast on the run game.
I was just going to say that. I didn't think we put any commitment to the run in either game. And I guess I didn't understand why we didn't carry over the passing game with Tyler Goodson from Michigan, where he caught 10 or 12 passes in that game. So that was a really efficient part. That was the only positive that came out of that Michigan game offensively, was the passes to Goodson, and he's proven that he can catch the ball down the field. Even he made a great over-the-shoulder catch against Michigan. So I think we abandoned that. And then, like you said, we didn't really even try to run against Penn State. It was almost like we read the Penn State stats and said, nope, we're not even going to be able to run against them, so we're not going to try. You cannot be one-dimensional against a defense like that. You got to be able to run the ball. Give your quarterback some time. I
hear you. Well, I got, Purdue. That's our next game coming up. That's another team that Iowa's had Iowa's number the last few years. It was kind of a head scratcher, to be honest, for fans 2 years in a row. What can we expect from the Boilermakers on Saturday?
The Boilermakers have had kind of a up and down season. I think you would say they played their best game of the season this past weekend against Maryland. It was a home game. They have a redshirt freshman quarterback after Noah Sindelar got injured a couple of games ago. He had a rocky game against TCU, didn't play that well, and they didn't play well in that game overall. But I think like any young player, he's improving. Jack Plummer, he's actually from the same hometown as Brock Purdy's, so Gilbert, Arizona. Here we go again. He was actually the offensive player of the week this week in the Big Ten. So he had a great day against Maryland. Now Maryland is probably not the best defensive squad in conference, but again, it's still a great feat. They're missing Rondale Moore, who is their really great wide receiver, all world, everything, can kind of do everything.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, that's a big blow. There's no doubt about it. He's a game changer. That's a big blow for Purdue.
Totally. And we've seen Purdue, I think, in the past couple of years where they've beaten Iowa is on a couple of plays in each of those games, and it's where they have a little bit more athleticism on the offensive side of the ball. It seems to affect us. And so, you get a young quarterback, young, offensive team. The defense, Purdue defensively is not that strong.
We'll see.
By the numbers on the road. I like Iowa to have a decent bounce back game here. It's just going to be up to, I think, the play calling, and if we do a nice mix of running the ball and throwing the ball down the field, and with some of those quick passes in between there.
Well, I'll tell you, Iowa's focus is going to have to be on point, because right now a third loss, that could spell long-term troubles, for Coach Ferentz and company. So Iowa does not want to see themselves get down.
You got to score touchdowns. That's the bottom line. You scored one touchdown in the last 2 weeks, and quite frankly, you take the Rutgers game out against Power 5 conferences, you've scored 2 touchdowns in those games. So, yeah, they got to find a way to get the ball in the end zone.
It's fourth down for us. Give me your thoughts that tip the scales for you this week.
So for me this week against Purdue, the one thing, I know the defense has been really good. There's not a lot to sit and poke at and say, here's where we have to improve. But you know what I'd like to see is I'd like to see some takeaways from the defense. We offensively are giving the ball up more than we can, and we're not good enough on offense to overcome those things, and you're putting your defense in bad positions. But then in turn, our turnover margin is actually 0 on the year. So I would actually like to see the defense, which has been really strong. I'd like to see some takeaways. I love Geno Stone in the secondary. He's a ball hawk. I had the pleasure of seeing him in back-to-back weeks. The guy just knows where to get the ball and where the football is. And so I look to him have a really great game. One other interesting note, Purdue's got a great passing offense. They're 10th nationally in passing, but they're ranked dead last in the Big Ten Conference in rushing yards per game at 66.5 yards per game. So I think if Iowa can shut down the passing game, then it's going to be really tough for Purdue to score.
Some thoughts that tip the scales for me. I'm going to say, Iowa's wounded right now. And what I'll say, what I mean when I say wounded is, their confidence is not as high as maybe they would like it to be. So can Purdue smell that blood? People, questioning the offense, that has to take its toll on you mentally. And so it's really going to be, is the confidence shaken at this point? Are they able to regroup in front of the home crowd and get back to playing the Iowa football that they're capable of playing? Also, where is the leadership? Who's going to be that player who steps in and challenges both the offense and the defense? You have, every single year you usually have like one player in there that is well respected on the team. And if the offense isn't playing well or the defense isn't playing well, and it doesn't even matter which side of the ball they play on, that person isn't afraid to step in and actually challenge the team, get in their face and say, hey, we're not playing the way we need to be playing. Step your game up. And above all, the season's not over. It's still a lot of games to go.
Still ranked in the top 25.
It's still in top 25 right there. And the thing is, it's not even just about the players. It's also about the coaches too. How do they respond? Everything's not just about the players and them going out there. What does Brian do to come back? Brian's going to take a lot of heat in this past week here about his offensive play call in the last 2 weeks. So how does Brian respond? What type of play calling do we see from Brian? How does Kirk Ferentz actually, make sure that this team stays bonded together and doesn't give up on each other? So there's going to be a lot of eyes on this week here, and there's a lot of season to go. So a lot of good times to be had for Hawkeye fans. We'll be back here again with some more.
Can I just add one thing that I saw on Twitter that I'm loving today?
What's up? What'd you see?
I saw a clip of Amir Smith-Marset talking about him reciting Niall Kinnick's Heisman speech, and that just really resonates and makes you see that's a guy right there who you look at and think, to your point about the leadership, if you're putting that kind of investment and love into what you're watching pregame, the guy clearly loves Iowa. So I think we're in his hands and other players on the team like that. Then, I'm loving that, and I'm loving that he's embracing the Hawkeye way and the Hawkeye community and just the history of the Hawkeye football.
No doubt about that. I think that is an awesome story to see. If you haven't seen it, please go out there and find that story of him reciting Al Kinnick's speech there. You know, we're over here talking about the losses and the feeling that we all feel when we take the loss. But then on the flip side, you look at the type of individuals that this program is bringing in, and you see that and you're like, wow, that just really makes you excited about this program.
Yeah, and we feel it as fans when they lose, but you know what? They feel it even more than we feel it, because they're the ones out there having to actually to go through and take the loss, and they're out there playing their tails off. So, you know, it puts it in perspective. But I saw that today and it made me smile and thought, you know what? You know, I love Iowa. He loves Iowa, and they're going to play hard this weekend.
No doubt about that. Hey, we're looking forward to the game, 9 a.m. kickoff in the West Coast. So we're going to be up early. Let's go get it, Hawkeyes. Thank you for joining us here on Tipping the Scales. We'll see you next time.